Hello, everybody. Welcome to another mini Educator Board Forum. This is our second one of the spring semester, and joining us today is Professor Sanford. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, excuse me. Hi, I'm Conchi Sanford or Ms. Conchi. Some of my students call me Ms. Conchi. Some of them call me Miss Sanford. For the most part, it's you could just call me Conchi for now.
All right. Thank you so much. And so basically, she's here today to kind of talk about her upbringing and kind of just giving her side of how she became a professor, what advice she can give us. So if you can, you have the floor, Professor.
As far as you want me to go straight into what kind of advice, or do you want me to give you a little bit of background information?
If you want, you could start with background, and then you could just work your way to the top, whatever makes you feel comfortable.
Okay, sounds good. I worked in the private sector uh, for about 20 years. So I finished my undergrad uh, in 2000. Before that, I was going to school at Fullerton Community College. I transferred from there to Cal State Long Beach, and I did a double major with art, fine art, and marketing. And while I was there, I wanted to finish, so I went ahead and did a minor in marketing, and fulfilled the requirements to do that. And I took some business classes while I was at it. Um, so I started working for some marketing firms. I worked as a marketing manager for, I want to say, at least 15 of those 20 years. Um, I started out working as a secretary, and I worked and moved up. And my bosses, one boss in particular, saw something in me at a firm that I was working for that provided software to the educational community. So to schools K through 12, we provided software that would assist in um, kind of like mathematical tutoring and science tutoring and labs and things like that. Well, she saw something in me and she pushed me forward, and I eventually became one of the trainers. And from there, I realized that I really enjoyed teaching. And of course, I enjoyed art. And so I started teaching on and off as much as I could without my master's. On the weekends, I worked at senior centers. And I did that for a while. So every chance I had to teach, I did. And but I still maintained a job. And then I think it was around 2009. So somewhere between 2008, 2009, when the recession hit, I was going through a lot of changes in my life. And my sister said, "You've always wanted to teach. CGU is, they have their deadline is in 2 weeks." And so I said, okay, I'm going to apply for my master's, and I'm going to go to school. I didn't have a job because it was during the recession. I was living on unemployment, and I was trying to find my way, and because I didn't want to go back to marketing. And so I ended up applying to CGU, running around, getting letters of recommendation. Back then, you didn't email them. You basically would go in person and ask for a letter. And so I did that with several of my instructors, um, or I found a way to call them and make an appointment. And so in 2 weeks, I had applied and met with the instructors at CGU. And then a couple weeks later, I got the phone call saying that I was accepted. And then my life changed. completely. And so I graduated CGU with, that's Claremont Graduate University, with my MFA in 2010. 2011. So I did a 2-year program. And this is where it gets scary, especially for all educators. I was unemployed. So I had my master's. I had accumulated a lot of debt. And I had never known debt like that before, because when I went to Cal State Long Beach, I had a full ride. And so I just took any job I could find. I was working for a law firm, basically going through all of their paperwork. I was really good at, and I think this is why it's easy for me to grade papers really fast. I was really good at proofreading. And so the lawyers would give me their documents. I would proofread them, make sure that there wasn't any inconsistencies. And so I did that for a while until I got my first job, which was at Crafton. And I've been there ever since as an adjunct. And then I took a job at MSJC as an adjunct. And then I worked for a brief time at Norco College. But all of that altogether was 7 classes, and it became overwhelming. So I stopped teaching at Norco College. So now I just teach at MSJC and Crafton. So it's I think I always wanted to be in the arts. I am an artist. I do curate shows, but I also create art. I will never stop making art. I have to say that I think sometimes I feel like it comes really naturally because of my exposure to growing up in, I'd say, a non-internet environment. When I was a kid, my mom's first generation. I'm first generation American. My mom's an immigrant from Spain. My dad was in the military. He married my mom, and when she moved here, she didn't speak any English at all. When I moved here, I didn't read or write any English at all. I could read and write in Spanish. I couldn't read and write in English, and that made things really hard for me since I already had a learning disability. But as I was growing up, my uncles took it upon themselves to take me to the Prado, any air museum or airplane museum you can think of. I've probably been there because my uncles were really into it, and I was a little kid, so they was like, well, my kids won't go with me, so you can go with me. And I was the youngest out of everybody. And so it's kind of like I got the tail end of what they wanted to do, but then I got exposed to all this great art. I think that knowing the history of Spain and knowing how it interplayed with a lot of the historical events that I had learned about in art history and in my history books, made me see that it was necessary to be an educator because there wasn't consistency. I say that because there's a lot of the textbooks that I come across are older textbooks, and they can sometimes leave out information that is really relevant to scenarios that have happened in history. And I talk about that a lot in my art history classes. I teach art history, I forgot to mention that. I teach art history, I teach history of modernism, survey of modernism, um, art history 1, art history 2. I've taught some sculpture classes, and I've taught drawing at Crafton, beginning and intermediate drawing. I teach a humanities course there too, art appreciation. I really enjoy it. I try to make it entertaining for students because I used to fall asleep in my art history classes. And so I'm like, I always think about, what would I want? Do I want to listen to somebody show me a picture and then tell me all about the picture, or do I want something more engaging? And so when I'm in front of my students, um, I do what I always say is I digress. But I do derail a lot, and I tell them stories, and I tell them about things that happen, and then I tell them about my first experience seeing the painting Guernica and how I cried, and then my mom made fun of me, right? Because that's how my family is, right? And so I always tell them that story because I think it's me. I'm like, oh, this is hilarious, you know? And because she's like, I grew up with that. That was part of my history. And I always forget that I have history in front of me whenever I talk to her. And she tells me about Franco. She tells me about her experience living in Spain. And it's always really the best education sometimes I think I can get and give back to my students is what my mom and my dad have taught me and over the years, and just knowing what they've been through. So I think that there's a lot of things that I can give back. And that's ultimately what I want to do because I believe that I can make a change. And I think I was put on this planet to make change, whether it's through my students or as an advocate. But I am an advocate for anything and everything that is good. And so I'm an advocate for women. And right now we are in March is uh, women's rights, right? March, I forgot what it was called. The women's movement. Um, so one of the things that I've mentioned before is that I did not change my last name when I got married because historically women were treated as property, and that is the reason why they changed their last name. Since my husband and I got married about 5 years ago, he did not feel, and nor did I feel, that it was imperative for me to change my last name. It's also a lot of work, but there's I'm all for women empowerment and providing equal and equality and equity for all people. Um, all Giving everybody a voice is necessary because we have been silenced for so long. So that's part of my advocacy. Um, I think I'll cover the rest of the rest of the questions now, if that's okay. So, do you want to just keep going?
You can keep going if you have anything else to say. I do. If anybody in the audience has any questions, you feel free to unmute yourself, or you can write it in the chat, and we'll read it out loud, so we know that your question can be heard. So, go ahead.
I was going to say some of the other questions that I had from Catalina was, how has the teaching online transition affected your teaching? I spend a lot more time online. Um, I spend a lot more time, I think, on my classes because I'm trying to make changes to my classroom. Um, for somebody who isn't computer literate or they're not, technically savvy, this is something that is probably, and I think I've heard it from other instructors, it's extremely hard. It's really difficult. Being online, I love to be outside. I want to be building things. I want to be making art. Um, so sitting in front of a computer and having this much FaceTime or I'm Zoom time, screen time is really difficult for me. I get headaches. I had to buy new glasses with the blue filter on them because I honestly before I didn't spend this much time in front of a computer. Um, and now I do. I got into podcasts, which is really great. I listen to a lot of podcasts now, a lot of crime podcasts, right? Um, I I'm always interested in learning about new stuff that's coming out, new if they're doing new digs, archaeological digs, I think they're interesting. Um, so I listen to some podcasts that deal with that also. But teaching online, um, I think that I honestly, the biggest thing has been that I've saved a lot of money in gas, but my gas bill has gone up. And so that's the only thing, and I can't write that off because we just did our taxes. But um, I like being in front of students. I get really nervous. I have every time I walk into the classroom, I have to take a deep breath because I do get anxiety. Um, but I pretend to be somebody else. Pretend to be performing. I look at it as a performance every time I walk in front of my students or talk to my students. But then once I get going, I realize, oh, the knowledge is there. I'm always worried I'm gonna just everything is just gonna blank out of my head. And it does sometimes. And or I'll remember something in Spanish and I'm teaching a class full of English speakers so that I'll say, I know the word, it's in Spanish in my head and I can't get it out. Um, so that happens. And I tell my students that I'm honest so that they know that I'm a real person. You know, I don't try to be anything that I'm not. Um, but I do have to say that it's really hard for me and for them to make a connection sometimes with the material if I'm not in front of them. And I think they're less likely to ask questions if I'm not teaching in front of them. And so that's that's been difficult. I like the change of having new students every few months. So every 4 months, I get a whole batch of new students and I have to learn all their names. And that's fun. It's kind of like, oh, it's like starting a job, a new job every 4 to 5 months for me, which is great because I don't like sitting still. Um, so being at home is difficult because I want to go out to wherever. I'll just leave my house. My sister lives up the street now. We just moved. Um, so I'll just go show up at her house and she's like, I'm in a meeting. And I'm like, it's okay. I'll just sit here and wait for you. And then she's like, what is it? What do you want? I'm like, oh, I just came by to say hi. I needed to get out of the house. We haven't been able to be around anybody because she and I are immunocompromised, both of us. And so if we want to see anybody, we just go to each other's houses. And that's been hard. That's been really hard. Let's see, what tips and advice can you share for aspiring educators? Don't give up. Don't give up. There were so many times where I wanted to give up and I didn't. And I've actually, what's kind of interesting, my husband was, I had started working and I was working crazy hours and I was scrambling to put my courses together because I got hired and I had to start teaching in 1 week. And he was really supportive. And at one point he was like, you can just get a job anywhere else. He hated seeing me stressed out. And I looked at him and I said, there's nothing better than this. There's nothing better. And he's asked me like every semester, even like when COVID happened, he was kind of like, what are you going to do? I'm like, well, I have a job right now. I have a commitment. I have a contract. I have to finish up the semester. And then the summer rolled around and I did my summer classes and I didn't even think about it. And then he was like, you seem really stressed out. You can get a job doing something else. And I said, no, no, it's, I said, this is where I'm supposed to be. And I've never, ever felt that way about any of my other jobs. I was always looking at the horizon and seeing something on the other side. The grass is greener on the other side type thing. And I don't feel like I'm pushing a boulder up a hill. I don't feel like everybody else is having a good time but me. I feel like this is where I'm supposed to be. This is where I can make um, the most impression, the most change that needs to be made, because it's not just in education. It's all about how you speak to somebody. It's all about how you guide a person. It's all about how you provide them with the knowledge that they need to make the decisions in the future. Because you guys are going to be making decisions for me. You guys are going you're going to be changing the rules, whether you know it or not. When I was going to say 60, but that's not too far away from now. When I'm like 75, you guys are going to be the ones that are making some changes in the laws, in how health coverage happens, how the police interact with people, who gives us our care. So you guys are the ones that are going to actually be making those decisions for everybody else, for your children, your nieces, your nephews. So my nieces and nephews are making those decisions now by voting and by changing laws, by being assertive. People my age are becoming mayors, things like that. But one of you guys could be the next president. We don't know. So it's my job to give you as much information as I can so that you can make those decisions. And so any other advice, I would say just keep at it. Some days it seems daunting. Some days it seems hard. There's a lot of stuff that happens. It's going to happen no matter what. My grandmother died right before I started graduate school. And I, honest to God, wanted to curl up into a little ball and not deal with anything. And I didn't. And I came to the conclusion that my grandmother would say, live your life and keep going, because that's what she did. Because she took her kids in the middle of the night, got on a train in Europe when Spain was being bombed, left everything behind, and moved her family to Madrid. And so if she can do it, then I can do it. And I'm just one person. And so I'm not going to let the sacrifice of my elders be in vain, because all of us have made sacrifices, but our parents have made sacrifices. My mom has made sacrifices. My father has made sacrifices. They all made sacrifices for us to be where we're at, for us to be able to live here in a first world country, in a space and a place where we're online videotaping a conversation with an educator. So, we have so many freedoms, and it's because of the sacrifices that our families have made for us. And so I would just say, keep trying. And every time you feel bummed out or put down or tired or whatever it is, go to your happy place. And for me, it's harassing my cat, and then he claws me. And then that's not my happy place anymore. But I'll go outside and I'll walk around the backyard, and but find your happy place, that spot in your brain that says everything's going to be okay, and then try again. Because if there's anything my parents taught me, is anything is possible. You can do anything. And that is probably the best piece of advice, the best piece of advice, and sometimes the worst piece of advice. Because when I was younger, I was like, well, I can do anything. So do I want to do this? Do I want to do that? What do I want to do? And one of the things I did learn is to follow my heart. And I think the fact that I have so much, so much freedom, I want to share that with other people. And I want to give back to my community, which is everyone, essentially. And so I do that through education. And I'm also CPA part-time union rep. I'm also a state advocate. I was elected this year. And so this year I've started to really push in my heels, so to speak. I think my husband's a little afraid of me right now, because every time he says something, I'm like, you know, but he just like, oh, okay, here we go again on the roller coaster. He doesn't take anything too seriously, which is really good, but I do try some stuff out on him a lot. But I feel like this COVID and teaching online, it has really and a lot of the things that I've been hearing and seeing that have been happening just on a day-to-day basis, and talking to people, I've really started to dig in my heels, so to speak, where I'm not moving, so to speak. Like I'm digging in and I'm not moving, because this is the right thing to do. I'm not going to be passive. I'm not going to be quiet. I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to be a speaker for those who don't want to speak up or cannot speak up. So it's time for change, because we're in this situation because of the lack of change. So thank you, Catalina. Your little hand pointing.
Thank you so much for that. We do actually have a question in the chat. So this is from Melissa. She says, I know you mentioned your love for art, so I am assuming it was pretty easy choice as to what exactly you wanted to teach. But do you have any tips for someone who doesn't exactly know what they want to teach? Like for me, I know I want to work in education, but I am not completely sold on being a classroom teacher.
Well, let me just say, I never thought I would be an art history teacher. Like I said before, I think you came in a little bit later. I used to fall asleep during my art history classes. Um, I hold on for just a second. I'm going to turn my light on. There, that's better. I started losing sunlight. I wasn't always uh, thinking of art history. I kind of I was given that class, and they said, here, teach. The first class I had was drawing that I was teaching, and that was great. Um, I I did really well. My students did really well, and then I was asked if I wanted to teach the art history class, and then the art appreciation class, and then I did because I needed the money. And in doing so, I realized I was really good at it, and I really enjoyed it, and it was where I could make the biggest impact. So between my art history class and my art, um, the drawing and painting class, I felt like it was balanced. So I had my students creating art about their feelings and talking about issues that they had no idea they had in common with everybody else. And then I had, on the other hand, I was educating my students through the art pieces. And I was saying, so this is what happened in this part of the timeline. And this is the French Revolution. And then, you know, and I'd ask them, what do you see? Pick it apart. Why is there, like, why? I would ask them, why is this lady in the middle of this painting? Simple questions just to get people's wheels turning. But if you don't know if you want to be an educator, like I say try it all. Okay, it can't hurt to try. You guys, I'm guessing I'm gonna be around till I'm probably like 86. My grandma passed away when she was 96. Um, but I I tried. So I'm like, okay, well, I figure, I don't know, I'll be around till I'm like 86. Okay, so I'll work till I'm like 80. And I mean, that not everybody wants to do that, but I can do that. And I tried teaching kids. I love them. Oh my God, it was so hard to leave, but I had to because I was getting sick all the time. And then when the office said, we want you to write curriculum, I said, okay, but who's going to take over my classes? And so we brought in one of the CGU alums that had been at the school that I was at, my MFA, where I got my MFA. And so we brought in Maite. She did really well. She actually taught me stuff of how to deal with children that had a lot of energy. So I I realized that being around the kids, like I said, I was getting sick a lot. I have an autoimmune problem. Um, and then I got put in the office and I started writing curriculum. And I was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to be behind the computer. And I can't be around the kids. And I don't I didn't want to manage anybody. I had done that already. It just and I kept getting shoved into that role over and over again. And then finally this happened and I said this is what I need. This is what I need. It's the change I need. And so I started doing it and I enjoyed it. You can do all kinds of jobs. Gosh, I have I can name off all of my friends at Crafton that I really miss that are staffers. So I would go in and they have their offices and then I'd start talking to them. Ruby is one of my really good friends at Crafton and I don't know what she does, but she works in the office. And I know she does something that's really intense with Excel spreadsheets and a lot of numbers. So I think she's an analyst. But if you don't want to do something like that and you want to teach or you want to be at a high school or a junior high or even a grade school, I worked with kids. So I worked up to sixth grade. They're amazing. Kids up like high schoolers, I haven't had a lot of contact with, but I know that the kids under sixth grade are just they're they're so bright and so happy, and every day is like a happy day, and um, it's exhausting. It is. But I know that one of my good friends actually stopped teaching and she became the vice principal. And now she's the principal up in Azusa and she makes six figures. So administrators a lot of times will end up making around six figures. And she's younger than me. So, well, everybody's younger than me. I'm 49. So I want to say she's around 40. So she made principal before that. So she was like 35 when she made principal. So she had a lot of debt. She had to get her master's, you know, um, but she has kids, and she's got mom and dad that she supports now. And but mom and dad are immigrants. Uh, I don't know if they speak English. I speak to them in Spanish all the time. I don't think they speak any English. Um, if it is, it's very limited. But they were able to provide an environment for their two daughters to go to school and graduate and essentially one day become principal and make that kind of money. So it just depends on what you want to deal with. Like there's a bureaucracy behind it. You can't make everybody happy all of the time. And with teaching at a college, we have bureaucracy, but I'm not dealing with people's parents. Let me just put it that way. I FERPA regulations are awesome. I don't have to talk to parents at all. And it helps. It helps because it allows me to tell my students, look, you guys are over 18. This is important that you know this. And we go over it when we go over the syllabus. And sometimes, it's hard for parents to let go. But yeah, you said you currently work at an elementary school. And so it just depends on what you want to do. What is your degree going to be in? Just education or
Sociology.
sociology? I would do my PhD if I was you. Definitely. Because it's going to get, this is not what you guys want to hear, but I'm going to say it's going to get harder because everybody in California, for the most part, seems like at least 50% of people out there have bachelor's degrees. And if you can become a counselor. When we always need counselors. When I was in high school, we had a therapist at our school. And so she was a counselor, but not really for academia. She was a therapist. And so that helped a lot of us out. I went to all girls private Catholic high school. And so our next step was college. It was a college preparatory school. It wasn't really optional. I didn't go to college right away, obviously, but I went and did other stuff. I worked a lot, and I realized I didn't want to work for that little pay and that much work. So, because I wanted bigger and brighter, and but yeah, psychology, sociology, I definitely recommend, even if you do it in baby steps every few years, I would do, and they defer. So if you're in school and let's say you have a bunch of loans and you let your loan company know, hey, I'm back in school, they will defer your loan. They're not going to make you pay your loan while you're in school. They don't tell you that off the bat. So you just have to call them up and say, hey, I can't pay my student loans because I'm back in school. And that's that. Or I don't have a job. Can we do something about it? And they'll work with you. As long as you're willing to work with them. And then I have another friend who works with developmentally disabled students and also works with sign language and hearing impaired students. And she ended up getting her PhD when she was around 40, and her kids were already in junior high. And she did baby steps. So she would get a job, put in some hours for about a year or two. I think there are clinical hours that you have to do. And so she would do like 2-hour stints. So she worked for 2 years. I'm sorry, not 2 hours, 2-year stints. So she did 2 years of work and then 2 years of education, and then 2 years of work and 2 years of education. And so she just she says, I'm going to get there eventually, but I need to spend this time with my kids. And her husband was really supportive too, because he worked with her timeline. And then eventually she did, and she ended up running the whole program. There's also art therapy, which I've done. I did it with senior citizens, and then they changed the regulations that you needed a PhD in art therapy. If you do art at all, there is art therapy. And so art therapy is kind of the clinical or psychological side of it, where you get a PhD in art therapy and you actually go in and work with either young students or senior citizens in different environments. I would go to the Dole home. So there's a series of housing owned by the Dole, Dole Fruit Company. They owned a series of houses in Irvine, and I would go house to house to house and work for an hour at a time with the patients there and doing art therapy. And um, it was really, really helpful for them because they felt accomplished. The reason I stopped is because one of my patients died. Um, and so I had a really hard time dealing with the loss. Um, and I didn't want to get that close to anybody again. And so I was young. I was really young. Now I know I know more. I don't want to say I know better, but I know more, and I know that these things happen. And so I feel like it was a good learning lesson, a good turning point for me. And I do know that a lot of my students were getting something out of it. I had an elderly man that used to cuss me out every day that I would see him, and it was because his Tourette would flare up, and um, and he had Parkinson's, and he had memory loss, so he got hit with like all of it, and somehow I would get him to sit down and put a pen in his hand, and his hands would be shaking so bad. And the minute the pen would touch paper, he would stop shaking, and everything would stop. It would calm him down. And just seeing that is, to me, just this moment of joy, you know, and him looking at me like, oh my God, I can't believe it. And even his son, who was visiting him one day, I was like, you have to wait. I want you to watch this. I want you to see your dad. And he was like, I gotta go, I gotta go. And I was like, no, you gotta wait, man. Just give me a minute. And he saw it, and he said it was like seeing his dad come back all over again. And those are the moments that we wait for as older students or older kids. My mom's 81, she's still with it. Um, but she has moments where she'll forget stuff. And I kind of go, mom, remember that time? So you got to kind of reel them back in. And so it's having that and having a parent that's still with it, and then seeing other people who have had parents that don't even remember them. It's harder on us, it's harder on the children than it is the um on the person that is going through it at that moment sometimes. So any kind of like social science, psychology, etymology, um archaeology. If I could go back in time, I would have a conversation with myself. And if I was 20 and I could go back in time, let's say, to talk to my 20-year-old self, I would say, go into anthropology or archaeology because you will travel and get your PhD. And then you can make as much art as you want to after that. But that's what you need to do. And buy stock in Mac. And that's what I would say to myself. I would go back in time and say, you need to do this, and tell everybody else that doesn't think you can do it that they can hit the high road. So because I was told that I wasn't going to graduate high school, and I did. And I was told that I was probably not going to finish college, and I did. And I was told not to go into art because it was a waste. because I was going to starve. I was going to become a starving artist. And I did. But I'm not starving. I'm still here. And I did it because I followed my heart and I followed what made me happy, not what made everybody else happy. I did what I knew I could do. I did what I knew I was good at. And everybody's good at something. So, how do you practice self care during these times? Sorry, Israel, am I taking your job?
Yeah, I was about to mention the question by Brenda, but no, go ahead. You got it.
So, self care at this time. So, I build stuff. I build a lot of stuff, and then my husband thinks I'm insane because I've already built 2 sheds and I've taken them apart. I built a cat house, and the cat house, um, he said I Conchi'd it, which is my name, um, which is a polite way of saying that excuse my language, I made it half-assed. So I didn't pre-drill my screw holes, right? And so yeah, I've been making a lot of art, a lot of really big sculptures because we have a backyard. I uh, I'm actually in the process of thinking about building a pagoda. No, that's wrong. Pergola. So like an awning over the area where we have where I have my blow up jacuzzi that I have to blow up again. I have to clean it, and I've been gardening a lot. I've okay, so I used to kill everything that I touched in the yard, and now when COVID happened, so it happened, in March. We stopped going to school in March of last year, March 15th to be exact. And I was kind of like, all right, this is good because it's springtime and I'm going to grow tons of vegetables, right? No, no. I got like 4 cherry tomatoes off my I I planted so many things, and the only thing that actually grew was my blackberries because I left them alone. A couple of cherries. Um, I planted like 4 not cherry, cherry tomato plants, and I got one to bloom. I killed my lavender, and my I bought the wrong kind of chilies, and those grew really well for some reason. Can't eat them, so I've been giving them away. Um, my husband is light on the stomach, is what I say. So I can't make my food too spicy, so I've been picking them and just giving them out. I have a neighbor that eats a lot of chili, and then my niece's boyfriend eats. He'll eat the whole chili right there. Um, I they were supposed to be green chilies, like from New Mexico, and I grabbed the wrong one when I was checking out. And so and then I got home and I planted them, and I'm like, that's not what that looks like. And so I'm like, they're not supposed to be red. And I waited and waited, and they were still red. And I was like, oh, it's not good. So, but it's growing really well now. And then some other plant has taken over my yard. So I go through and I weed, and I've built up a really good batch of dirt. And I thought about composting, but then I found out. So I've been like doing a lot of research, and I'm like, oh, this looks like fun. And then I thought about composting, and then I found out that it smells really bad. And I was like, I don't think our neighbors are really going to enjoy that. So I decided not to do the composting. Plus, we don't, it's just the 2 of us. If we were like a family of 5, I think we would have enough to make enough compost. But it's just the 2 of us. And my husband likes plastic a lot. And I don't, I say, you have a cup. Why do you need a water bottle? new water bottle every time. And what else do I do? Yeah. Yeah, because I have my elliptical machine and I get on that. I train the cat. He comes in when I call him. We talk. He started talking to me, which I thought was really interesting because I was telling him to go inside and he started like making these noise, the stuff that you only see in videos. And now he has like he talks back to me when I'm telling him to get inside. And so, but he listens and I tell him, I yell for him. I think my neighbors think my son's name is Jeremiah because I'm constantly going, Jeremiah, come inside. And then he comes inside and I'm like, don't you do that. Don't you do that. Get your butt inside. So, and I know all my neighbors can hear me. So they must think that I'm yelling at my kid or something. But mostly gardening. It's kept me really, really active. We live in California. The weather here is, I mean, I don't, I can't even imagine what I would be doing right now if I was in Texas. Um, I would probably be outside shoveling the snow. I don't know what else like. Yeah, I love being outside. I even bought a bike. Um, and so I started cleaning it up because it had been left outside until it was really rusted. So I've been cleaning it up so I can start bike riding. And then my sister said, "Oh, we should go bike riding together." And I was like, "You live 5 miles away. By the time I get to your house, I'm not gonna want to ride my bike anymore." So, and I'm like, I'm really out of shape. So it's like it takes me 14 minutes to drive to her house, and it takes me less time, 10 minutes to drive to my niece's house, which is they live on the same street but in different directions. Um, I go spend time with the kids a lot, and then I'm always offering to babysit. And I have Allie bring me Haley, and we do art projects. And that's one of the things that has kept me going more than anything else. I think not really focusing on myself and my state of mind, but rather focusing on everybody else in my family and making sure that they have somebody to talk to. So, because there was a time, I'll be really honest, like a couple of months ago, I was a mess. I think it was Thanksgiving. From Thanksgiving to the beginning of the semester, I was a mess. I didn't want to get out of bed. I didn't want to do anything. My dad canceled Thanksgiving. We were all going to drive up to Mammoth. Everybody. We had all decided that we were going to Mammoth and to visit my dad. That's where he lives. And then he canceled and said, I don't think it's a good idea. Um, that was about a week before Thanksgiving. And I was like, so what are we going to do? And my sister's like, I don't know, I'm just going to stay home, catch up on some TV. And then from there, I got really unmotivated. And so I also suffer from what's called seasonal affect disorder, where when the sun isn't out, I get sad because I need the vitamin D, and that was that was hard. So I started going outside and just cutting, like I would pick a tree a day and trim it, even though it had no leaves on it. Um, so I was going out there and just like whatever I could, because I can't sit in front of a computer. I can't, I mean, there's only so many um, reruns. Like I can only catch up on Blacklist so much, and NCIS, you know, I and at Christmas time, which is good, which was really good for me. I get really hooked on these like sappy romantic. I mean, they're so bad, but they're so good. Like, you know, it's going to be a happy ending. You know, the two people are going to meet each other. They're going to fall in love at Christmas time, and then they're going to be married. And, you know what's going to happen in the movies. So I watch these Christmas movies all the time, and I'll watch them back to back because you know it's going to have a happy ending. And so that's kind of what kept me from like completely losing my mind at Christmas time. Um, because I you know, I just didn't want to, I didn't want to be around anybody. My husband's family all got COVID on Thanksgiving, and he went, but for some reason he is like, I don't know, he's just got the immune system of a beast because he has not caught it, and he still works. And he uh he came home, and he a couple days later we get the phone call, oh, everybody's sick from COVID. That was at Thanksgiving. And I'm just like, I'm so glad I didn't go, because I didn't. I said I'm not going. He was like, what? I'm not going, and you can't make me. And then I ran to my room, well, my office, and I shut myself in the office. And he's like, okay. I was like, if I run away, I don't have to explain myself, you know. And he because sometimes he can be very um one-sided. So I made art after that. So after New Year's, I started building because I had an art show coming up. I had an art show last year, which kept me going. Um, and I've decided that if I start feeling this way again, I'm just going to start building again, whatever it takes. I don't like feeling this way. I'm not on um, any antidepressants or anything like that. I am, however, I started taking a lot of vitamins. So I take CoQ10, which is for heart health. I had to start taking those because I wanted my husband to take them, because incidences in our age range with men are higher. Incidences with heart failure and heart attacks are higher in men at his age because of stress and eating behaviors. I don't know what he eats when he's out there, but he likes burritos too much. And so I made him start taking. I said, you can stop eating burritos, or you can start taking the CoQ10. And so I bought the gummies. I have a stress comfort gummy that I take. I have an support, immune system support gummy I take, and we take zinc because I heard it was really good for you, and for some reason it's made my hair grow really fast. And so, and we switched to gummies because um, regular pills hurt my stomach. I get acid reflux. It's always happened to me, and that's why I stopped taking vitamins. And now I started again, and I was like, well, I'll try gummies, and it's great. So every morning I take my gummies, and it's actually helped a lot. The stress gummy has helped a lot. It has like ashwagandha in it. Oh, and there's this, I heard about this vitamin called HTP. So it's the number 5, and it's HTP. And it's supposed to help with your brain um, working better. And so you don't have as many foggy days. Um, and I feel like it has helped me a lot in just staying on top of my my medic like my gummies and taking them when I need to. That has helped me a lot too, and it's given me energy. I have a lot less body pain because of it, and I highly recommend it. And I stopped. We don't. I don't drink soda. I haven't drank soda in years. I don't eat out unless my husband wants a pizza, and then we can order pizza. But I make him get me a salad. So if I'm going to eat something bad, then I'm going to eat um, salad or vegetables with it uh, first, and then I'll eat the bad stuff. It's I haven't I have really good um, eating habits, except for when my sister bought me a box of Thin Mints. I ate the whole box in 2 days, which I I even told her too. I said I ate the whole box in 2 days. Can you believe that? And she says that's nothing. You should see what Mitchell, her husband, I'm sorry, her son ate. And I'm like, but Mitchell's like 30. He can do that. And he's a boy. He has like these, him and my husband can eat anything and he's a rail. Um, I said, but not even that. How bad is that? And I'm not that kind of like, I don't, there's just certain things that I stay away from because I know that I can't control myself. So I'm just like, we're not going to do that. So, but also if you put a big bowl of olives in front of me, I'd probably eat the whole thing as long as I had enough water. So, the Spanish olives with the pimiento in the middle, I love those. And then there's just certain things that you just like, okay, I'll have a lot of that. And I won't eat again for 3 days. That's a joke. Okay. I will eat again.
Well, that sounds like really yummy food. I think I would also eat a lot of cookies as well. Maybe not in 2 days, not cookies, but I do have a habit of eating chocolate and it doesn't make it through the day. Um, we do what we can. You said it, one day at a time. Um, I want to thank everybody for being here. And I also want to thank you, Professor. I think like one of the most important things that I'm taking away from today is it's something that I needed to hear that we shouldn't give up. It's been really hard imagining how we're going to get through this. But, if we just one day at a time focus on not giving up, eat some chocolate or some cookies, I'm pretty sure we can get through this. So, in order to respect everyone's time, I don't know if you want one last piece of advice for us before we leave.
I I I don't know. Like I'm the kind of person that I look at everything as the glass half full, not half empty. And I keep thinking, you know, there was a point, and I think this was part of my depression also, was that there was a point where I was extremely upset, not just with um, the a lot of the I want to say I don't know what I would call it, just a lot of the racism that was happening last year. I was just really taken back because I thought we had come so much further than that. And it really upset me um, that people could treat each other like that and be that um, aggressive. And so there was that moment when I was like, is it the glass half full or is it half empty? And I said, no, yeah, it is one step back, but now it's time to take 2 steps forward and to make a difference. When you know, there's been days in my life when I was younger that I would say, oh, this is the worst thing that's ever happened to me. You know, I slept in bed for 3 days. My boyfriend broke up with me. I cried. And then, or I got an F in one of my classes. Um, or I don't know, I'm feeling overwhelmed. I don't know how I'm going to get through all of this. And then COVID on top of it. And I just keep thinking, I I got through it. I'm still here. So it's kind of like you're look around and think about all the positive things. If you're in a bad situation, reach out. If you're unhappy, find a way to change it. Because I've been unhappy before and I found a way and I thought there was no way out. And I found a way to change it, but through small steps. And but once I put my mind to it, there was no stopping me. That's one of the things my husband said when he first met me. He's like, one of the things I like about you is that you're relentless. And I was like, oh dear, that's bad. That's bad. You know, because I was thinking like a negative perspective. And he says, no. He's all, that's good because you know what you want. So be relentless and love yourself. And when I say love yourself, I'm not talking about like looking good or if that's what makes you feel better, good. But love yourself because when you make changes in your life to be prepared for the rest of life and you feel like you're not going to make it, loving yourself and doing what's best for yourself will have a domino effect on everything else in your life. Those are words to live by because whenever I have thought about things that I'm doing, I think about not just that moment in time, but how will this moment in time affect everything else around me? How will taking this one class change my life? How will getting this degree provide comfort and solace to my children? How will teaching and being an educator provide hope for future generations? So it's like your carbon footprint. It's your educational footprint. Every time you take a step forward, you're making an impression in not just your life, but the lives of others. I know a lot of people who have gone back to school. They have kids at home. It's really hard. I get it. I get it because my sister did it. She has her PhD now. She ran her own business. She had 4 kids. Her husband wasn't around. She did it, and we helped. We helped as a family. And I'm sure she got grief from my mom, whatever, but it happens. But it's, you know, reach out. Reach out to the people you know are going to help you, that are going to push you. I actually am part of a mentor program, and I mentor CGU students that are going through the program. And so what I do is I ask the hard hitting questions. What do you want to do with this? Why are you here? And every time you want to give up, you ask yourself, why am I doing this? Because you're not doing it for yourself. You're doing it for your family. You're doing it for whatever reason you have, to make more money, to provide a visual, like this visual support to your children. So when your children see you going to school, they are more apt to go to school themselves. It's a statistic. It's known. When you provide this for them visually, auditory, they will be more apt to do the same. And it'll be less of a give and take. It'll be less of, they will have less reasons to say no. The reason why I went to school initially is because I had no choice. My father had 2 daughters and 1 son. His son didn't have the privilege that we had as daughters, because my father said, one of these days, you're going to want to get married and you may have children. And when that day comes, if your husband dies, you need to support your family. And the reason he said this was because it happened to him. His mother was left caring for 7 children without a husband on an educator's salary. She was lucky because she had an education. Because my great grandfather said the same thing. Back then, it was like, it wasn't common to be a woman getting an education, number one. And number two, it was, men died before their wives a lot. And so this was what my dad said to me. And I'm glad that he did, because he didn't just create somebody that went to school. He created somebody that I could survive. He created a survivor. And as you go to school and every day you get educated, and you might be learning something that you say, I'm never going to use this again. You will. You will. I took geology 2 times, because the first time I did not get through that class. I dropped it, got a W. I said, I'll take it again later. Second time I took it, I just studied and studied and studied. I only took it for the summer because I was like, this is it. If I don't get it this time, I'm not going to get it. And believe it or not, when we drive places, point out to my husband now, oh, do you see the striations in the rock and weigh the land? Because we take driving trips all the time. And so I point out the land and how the different levels of land and how it's been impacted over the years. And the first time I did that, he looked at me, he's like, how did you, I'm like, geology. I hated that class. But it's the one that I remember the most. But you never know. You never know. My understanding, I took what I thought was an easy class, international business. Oh, it's a great class, because now I understand how and why consumers are purchasing the things that they're purchasing. And so there's even and then I can make conscious decisions about things that I purchase. I'm not motivated by what's out on the market. I'm motivated by what my needs are. My iPhone is from 2016. I replaced the battery. I've replaced half of the components in it, because I watched YouTube, and I was so scared, but I did it. I took it apart and I replaced it, and took me like 3 days to do it because I was scared, but my phone kept dying. And I needed a new battery, and I was like, oh, they did it on YouTube. Looks easy. Um, I flushed my water heater that way, and they did it on YouTube. Looked easy. Uh, so anything is possible. I swear, I would have never said, "Oh, I can flush my water heater." But I've changed the brakes on my car before. I'll never do that again. Um, that was really hard. I, yeah, and dirty. I
Well,
could.
it sounds like fun. It sounds like you have a lot of fun doing stuff.
Oh, I know I'm
Again,
gonna. I know I'm gonna screw it up. Sorry, I just wanted to throw that in. I know I when I go to do something, I know without a doubt that I will screw it up somehow, but that's what tape is for. So
no, and it's a learning experience, and
mhm,
I love that. I can imagine all the kinds of stuff that you do, and they seem like fun, and you obviously have learned a lot, from what you're sharing with us. Again, I want to thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to be here with us, and all those people that came today to hear you on Zoom. I know I'm gonna enjoy watching this again when we post it on our YouTube channel, and I hope everyone else out there, when they get to see this, they also enjoy everything, and then just again take away what you said about keep going, never give up. I don't know what it's going to be like for us out there, especially given the situation.
mhm.
But now I kind of feel like I can face it in an adventurous way. Just thinking about everything you mentioned, like I can, half glass empty or full. It can be really hard or sad, or it can be something adventurous. So I'm choosing to look at it as an adventure, and hopefully one day I'll be able to talk about it, just like you're talking to us about everything you've done.
And also I go back to that the story about my grandmother leaving Salamanca in the middle of the night with her two children, getting on a train, leaving everything in their house and just taking one suitcase, and her two children getting on a train and moving to Madrid in the middle of the night, and seeing, you know, the after effects of the Civil War and World War II, and living through that, and not knowing if they were going to eat, if they were going to get rations, not knowing if she was going to be able to raise her kids. Um, she had two children. My mom had two kids. There were two kids that died. They were both named Alfonso before Jose was born. And my mom, you know, they were both died because of the lack of food um, during and after World War II. And so knowing that my grandmother made it through that and my mother made it through that, I can make it through anything. We can all make it through anything. It's
Yes, we can. Yes, we can. That is an amazing story. And I thank you again for sharing that with us, because we don't know what other people go through. And sometimes just having that perspective, it's eye-opening in many ways, and it helps us. It gives us that sense of hope that, like you said earlier, anything can happen, so you definitely made my day better today. um I don't want to take up any more of other people's this time. Again, thank you guys for being here, and we hope to see you soon.
thank you.
So thank you, and I'll stop recording, I think. Okay, well, something happened with Israel. He had a family emergency, so he had to go.
Oh,
So his computer is obviously still recording, and it won't
mhm.
stop until I end the meeting. So
Okay.
again, thank you so much. The light went out on me. I couldn't leave and go
Okay.
turn on the light. But I enjoyed your conversation. And as soon as we have it up in our YouTube channel, we'll send you the link so that you can also share it.
Okay, sounds great. Thank you so much, Catalina. And if we can.